What's going on YouTube? This is Mario back in our video. Today's video gonna be doing another book review on book is gonna be on TD Jakes Soar. This book was released last year. And this book is pretty different than what you. It's pretty told you there's side TD Jakes because we all know TD Jakes. For those who grew up in a Christian home. You probably seen one of his preachings on TBN. He's pretty well known, especially in the Church of God of Christ Pentecostal, community. He's very charismatic. He's one of the biggest names in, you know, biggest names in, in preaching. He's one of the biggest names in, the church. And so, T. Jakes, we know he's known as a preacher, but he's also known for books, writing books, producing movies like Women That Are Loose. He's done. He has his own music company. He has produced albums. So TJX is pretty well known. It's pretty all around entrepreneur, but he's mainly known for his ministry and at the Potter House. So I like this book because it talks about, practical ways you can make start a business. It's not just about, having faith and whatnot. Even though obviously he talks about faith, even though he obviously reference scripture in his book, he talks about like practicality as well. And that's something that, can really resonate with not just with, Christians, but even with, non-believers who might read this book but want to start their own business. So if you're a person who's an entrepreneur who may not be a Christian, I definitely recommend this book because he talks about practical ways you can start a business, through the internet. He mentions storytelling, he mentions, millennials quite a bit in his book, compared to baby boomers, because there's obviously a cultural divide between boomers and millennials. He never mentioned Gen Xers because Gen Xers are pretty much, kind of in a pretty much not so different. People just forget about Gen Xers, like being young and angsty. We just assume that everybody who's young, man, you pretty much think everything, pretty much you think of, slacking, people slacking off. It's just millennial thing, but people forget that there are generations who it kind of didn't start with, the millennials started with Gen Xers, you know, but you know, got a little sidetracked right there, but I like this book because he talks about again practicality. He talks about you know, storytelling. He talks about mentorship, like, make sure you find people who knows what they're doing, people who have been in business, who are still practitioners of what you're doing. Not just people who haven't done it in a while or people who never done it, but just want to give you advice because they own you, whatnot. Find mentors who can practically support you. And he also mentions, don't start a business. Well, not necessarily don't start a business with your family and friends, but don't. But your family and friends can let you down. Like if you hire them, and that's true because plenty of us have family business. Plenty of us, know people in our families who, they might be good people, they might be good intention, but they're just not great employees. They might feel entitled. They might feel like, oh, you owe them something because they took care of you, whatever. They've been by your side. They know you from your birth, etc., etc. So he mentions that in the book as well. So, overall, I say this book was a good book. I definitely recommend this if you're an entrepreneur, if you plan on starting a business. I give this book 4 out of 5. The book, there were points in the book where I kind of felt like it was a little bit repetitive, but like he kind of one of the theme of this book was the Wright brothers, and he mentions them quite a bit. So if you're familiar with the Wright brothers story, they were pilots from Ohio, and they flew the first airplane in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. He mentions them in the book, and it kind of got a little repetitive to me. With that whole narrative, and then with us mentioning millennials a lot. Not mention forgetting Gen Xers, forgetting Gen. Well, obviously he's an older person, so he doesn't probably understand Gen Z yet. But I mean, he thinks that millennials are like the only generation, that they just assume millennials are just young and he just puts he kind of what the narrative that old boy that a lot of baby boomers say about millennials that we just just young internet kids who just want everything fast, but forget that most millennials grew up in the '90s, grew up in a time when the internet we still was everything was still new and stuff. But so those are the only two problems I kind of have with the book. But like other than that, the book was solid. I give it a 4 out of 5. For more book reviews, check out my channel. Please like, subscribe. This is Mario. Sign off.